we started in January to March. We were just us. In March, we started generating revenues. May, we broke even. June, we became profitable. July, we had a profit of over $1 million. And that's when in July is when I started hiring.
Formally welcome you to the Entrepreneur Spotlight series. And what we are doing with this series is that we're interviewing and talking to a whole bunch of very successful entrepreneurs like yourself so that we can kind of get more information and kind of so that we can learn from you. I want to start with, talking a little about you, about your personal background. If you can kind of tell us a bit about how you started off on your journey. I think you've had a very interesting career so far. You've switched, like you've had a career in a regular, like a corporation, and then you've branched off by yourself. So yeah, I would love to know more about your journey.
Yeah, I mean, after 20 years of having corporate expat jobs, this is the first time to go and delve into entrepreneurship. I mean, this year was the first year that I went into the entrepreneurship route. So I started my career in the Tata Group, Yellow Pages business. So hardcore kind of space selling in the trade space, right? And then moved on to trading, real trading in Taiwan. I worked for a trading house. In Shanghai, I worked for a trading house. Then I was at Global Sources for about five and a half years. Then I managed Intertech's North America, Latin America business based out of New York. Then I managed Pico's business in UK and Europe. I was the general manager for Europe. And then I came back to Global Sources, where I was managing all of the international products, magazines, online trade shows for every market other than China. And I was also managing Startup Launchpad. That's when I got together with Brent, and Brent and I decided, who's my co-founder, him, me, and two other co-founders, we decided that we wanted to solve the problems of the sourcing industry. And this was early last year, 2019, when we did not know about coronavirus. But we knew that traveling will not be that easy. We knew that costs are going up, restructuring is coming in the retail sector, etc., etc. And that's why we wanted to bring in a solution that will solve that issue.
This is something that I've also realized when I've been talking to you over time, that you always make it sound very seamless, your whole journey, and also how you kind of transitioned into doing your own thing. But I'm sure it wasn't seamless. So what was like, first, what was the thought process when you wanted to branch out and do your own thing? Was it not very intimidating? Was it not very scary to not have the security of a job, a salary?
Yeah, I tell you, it was very insecure. First, because, especially for Brent and me, we had expat packages. And I have not worked for the last 16 years, I've been on expat packages. Expat packages come with the car, the company insurance, the children's education, family insurance, all those kinds of accountabilities. Yeah. So it is daunting. But what is further daunting is, you've been working so hard so many years, but you're not really solving a problem. You're just making money for an investor who pays you a salary. You're not creating a solution. You're not solving a problem. You're just doing a job. And that is far more, and for different people, it comes at different stages. I think we were pretty late in realizing or feeling it. And when we felt it, the feeling was so strong that we said, no matter what, we have to risk it. And if we don't do it now, when are we going to do it? Right? I mean, we were prepared to not take any income for the first year or 2 years, pretty much. We were ready with that. We had savings enough for that, etc., etc. I mean, touch wood, business is good, so we don't have to do all that. But that's what we were prepared for.
How long did you plan for it? Like, did you do kind of extensive financial planning to lead you up to a stage where you could kind of really, jump off and say that, okay, like pull the trigger and say, okay, now we're totally ready?
I think more than the financial planning on a personal level,
Mm-hmm.
we did a lot of due diligence and planning on the business models.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I mean, that was the planning, but we did change after that as well. But what
Mm-hmm.
we were prepared for, at least from my end, what I was prepared for, that once I had the team ready, the core team, the core co-founders ready, I was
Mm-hmm.
ready. I said, once I have the team, we can build it. If we, more than the financial part of it, right? I mean, at 40, I had some cushion. I was not completely like, okay, if I don't work for a year, I can sustain. That was the thing.
Very interesting. I think, especially the part that you mentioned about the cushy job. That's something that I experienced for myself as well when I was at Procter and Gamble, and I think that is really one of the biggest things, kind of mentally, which creates that barrier. In
Yeah.
terms of feeling that okay, a company is taking care of me. I'm getting all these perks, and this is something that I would have to figure out for my own self if I was to move into doing something for myself. Have you guys kind of so you have a structure which is the three co-founders. Have you also kind of moved beyond that, and are you hiring resources? Is that the next step, or are you already
Yeah,
there?
we now have about 22 people. Um, we we grew. We've built a tech team. We've built a sales team. We've done an operations team. We have a finance team. So we built everything now in house. We have a solid team to take us through for the rest of the year. So
Okay.
basically, we started in January to March. We were just us, four co-founders, not three, four of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we were building the tech. We were outsourcing most of the work, etc. But in March, we started generating revenues. May, we broke even. June, we became profitable. July, we had a profit of over $1 million. And that's when in July is when I started hiring people.
I assume that you already had very strong relationships with the supplier, so you already had your kind of like your business model worked out, and you had the right resources. How did you reach the right community of buyers to actually then buy your service?
Basically, it came down to us co-founders and us selling our credibility, right? People having to trust us. The good thing that happened with COVID was people were struggling to get any product out of China or anywhere else. There were disruptions in logistics. There's disruptions in the supply chain. Factories had closed down. Factories were not trustable. There was a lot of scammers in between, and all those kind of things are happening. At that time, our experience and credibility was what people trusted.
Okay, so you would say that in terms of the value that the co-founders were bringing to the company, the relationships and the reputation was probably paramount.
Yeah, I mean, and any startup, right? It finally comes down to who are the customers seeing or who are they working with. So if it was not us and our credibility and what we've done in the past, it's very hard for them to say, hey, why would I give you that business? Why would I work with you? Who are you? So that was an advantage for us because we were known in our space, and at least there is a history somewhere. Even if you go and look at LinkedIn or Google us, you'll find a history which is relevant to the business.
Yes. So that makes a lot of sense, that you come from the same industry and you're telling people that this is already the expertise that not just you have, but like also your co-founders have, and it's not something new that you guys are doing.
And those are the things that no money or nothing can actually buy that. It comes because it comes from the founders. And I think one of the biggest lessons for me out of all this is that two things. One, the credibility of the people that you work with, or in my case, the co-founders, but also the trust that you have between the founders, right? So people are the element. For me, all the co-founders, I have personal relationships with them much older than I have business relationships with any of them. So it helps, and they know the strengths, and we know each other's strengths, weaknesses, or where the loopholes are, or personality traits, etc., and it really makes a big difference. You don't sense it till you are doing it day to day.
This is really interesting that you mentioned that you had personal relationships with them before a business relationship, but sometimes you often get the advice that you shouldn't go into business with friends. So how do you kind of deal, like how what is your opinion about that particular piece of advice?
So why I say personal relationships. So for example, Brent and I, of course, know each other for 16, 17 years. We were in the same company, but always in different. He was in operations, I was in sales and BD. So we never worked in the same teams, but we always had a mutual respect for each other, and we were friends, and we were going out together and doing, personal stuff together, right? We were out for dinners and parties and birthdays and blah, 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 and travels, etc. And then, of course, we've been very good friends, and we were building. So the good thing is they're all friends. The advantage of that was I already knew each of their strengths in the area. So we could actually divide the task much easier. And so for me, the most important part of them is not them being friends or them knowing their area, but the fact that they're all good people. So it's when you have good people who have the same vision, it's easy. Doesn't matter anything else.
That's a really great answer. I like that it's not that you should not do business with friends because they're friends, or that you should. It's more about who they are as people and what expertise they bring, and then what relationship you have with them.
Sometimes you have friends, and you you're a guy and a girl and you're friends, but he or she may not be the one that you want to marry, right? Sure. It's not that there's something. It's the same thing with business. You cannot marry all your friends. But some of them, yes, you can.
So how did you guys divide up the responsibilities, and are there no overlaps? Is it that each partner kind of can autonomously make decisions?
It's completely decentralized. Of course, as the CEO, I'm the CEO, so I have kind of an overview of everything, and I get updates from everybody. But it's pretty much a free hand once that assignment is given. Okay, so for example, Brent is responsible for the operations part, and he makes the decisions on the operations part. Michael is responsible for the marketing part, then he makes the calls on that marketing part of that. Pranav is the CTO, then I have told him what he needs to do. He has approved a budget, and we've all agreed to. So beyond a certain limit, we have standards where the budgets are set, etc., etc.
What if a partner takes a decision that others don't agree with? Do you have processes is in place for?
We put in SOPs in place wherein at what amount does the board need to, or everybody needs to say. If it is below, let's say, below $10,000, then we don't really want to spend our time doing that, right? Or in some companies, it might be 50,000. Some companies might be 5,000. Depends, whatever company size there is. So in our case, we decide, one is based on the responsibility of work. So if the marketing guy is making operational decisions, of course, we have a problem. But it's marketing, it's been assigned, this is your KPI. So we've set everybody's KPIs clearly. We've told everybody what is expected by when, and then they are responsible and accountable. And that's the reason you have experienced people in the team.
Makes a lot of sense.
Micromanagement is not scalable.
Yeah, very true. Very true. And it's really interesting. It connects back to how you're saying that you started hiring people kind of as soon as you were profitable. So that means that you had the systems in place, and you had the thought process in place, and you are looking to scale quickly as soon as you were in that position too. So it really makes a lot of sense that way.
Yeah, because we're self-funded, right? And we didn't want to spend any of our money, or in the future, if we raise even, we don't want to spend money before we are sure of the returns.
Yeah, That makes sense. That's the cautious entrepreneur's approach, not to take very high risks. And anyway, I feel like in your whole business model and the way you approach the whole situation, it's interesting that people always talk about like entrepreneurship being, high risk, high return kind of business, kind of way of doing things. But actually, for you, I feel like it wasn't high risk, but it was still high return, which is very
No,
interesting.
I would say there is a risk in everything that you do, but it's
Mm,
a calculated risk, right? It's not a gamble. It
mm,
is saying, okay, there is a risk. So even now, when we're doing the business, there is a
mm,
risk. Okay, what if China changes the policies, US changes the policies, Europe changes there are all those kind of macro risks that we cannot
mm,
control. But are there risks that we can control? So who do we work with? Which are the suppliers you work with? Or do you go with somebody completely strange and just avoid all the? Don't take take huge chances by just going to any supplier that you don't know anything about. Don't do any due diligence. We have processes in place how to do the due diligence. We have processes in place. What is the weight or defining this is a good supplier, or what is the process of due diligence on buyers, and so on and so forth. So we
mm.
have to have processes.
The four of you are in a unique position where you've had a lot of industry experience, you have a lot of contacts, and you are in a position also where you are able to find the right partners. Of course, that also comes with experience and age and working in the industry. So what about young entrepreneurs? What about people that are just that have ideas, might not have the right relationships, might not have the right partners? What would be your advice to them, also considering that you were in that place, but personally you always chose to work in a company and then chose to branch out later in life?
This is just my personal opinion. I believe that it is very, very important to understand the subject matter of what you are trying to start a business in. Um, because if you want to make it scalable, if you want to really, really be successful, either you hire some people who are subject matter experts very early on, or you are the subject matter experts. So for the young entrepreneurs, if they say, let's say somebody is doing tech and he or she doesn't have the right people in his team as well who understand that subject, then you have a problem.
Mm,
I came across a lot of founders who have great ideas,
mm,
but a startup or a business is not about ideas, it's about execution. And execution needs subject matter expertise. If you don't
mm.
have that, you're going to fail at execution. I make a joke about it, but basically, ideas are like noses. Everybody has one,
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
So ideas is not the problem,
Yeah.
and skills is not the problem. What the problem is the expertise.
I mean, you can have like a good understanding of something at a younger age, but it's hard to have real expertise. Like, for example, when you're fresh out of undergrad school or fresh out of grad school, if you have had a lot of experience, you might think that you know something in a theoretical way, but actually doing it is a whole different ballgame. That's definitely something that I learned firsthand. I can know all about apertures and depth of field and how to direct actors, but if I don't know how to figure out how to be trustworthy, how to create that reputation, how to create that community of people that will come to us for that service, then that it's really not that's not going to help me. Knowing the field theoretically is not going to help me.
Yeah, because people always when I say this, people always say, "Oh, look at people like Mark Zuckerberg. He was a graduate, started the business." I say there are always
Dropout.
outliers. But have
Yeah.
you known how many that did not succeed doing something like that
Yeah.
because they did not have the, maybe there are certain things that he did right in terms of hiring people. Like, is he doing the day to day of management of Facebook? No, of course not. He's not doing it. He got Sandberg very early on, and
Mm.
she pretty much took over, and she had experience. She came with the experience of managing an organization and the other people that he hired. So he had to hire that, and he was smart enough to say, okay, I don't know this shit. I need people to do this. If my skill set is, say, for example, business development, then I should focus all my energy on business development and do it the best. So do what you know best to the best of your ability, rather than trying to do everything else.
That's really great
Hire.
advice.
So in our case, we have now invested over 250,000 US dollars in technology, just technology. But we would not do that off the bat. Off the bat, what we started doing was doing everything on Excel sheets and on paper and offline. I cannot have a website from day one out. You have to start getting customers. The first thing and this I say when I was a startup launchpad as well, is that the first thing, focus on getting customers. Once you have paying customers, you can scale up the business. What I did at Global Sources doesn't matter anymore. What matters is, in this business, can I generate revenue? In this business, can I get new customers? In this business, can I sustain it? And once I do that, then I say, okay, now it's time. I want to expand. I want to hire people, etc., etc. And, we had to all work 16, 17 hours in those days to get it all done.
Yeah, very true. Very true. I think it has to be in every kind of entrepreneur's journey, especially those that might not have partners to begin with. I think there has to be a point where they have to kind of sink or swim, right? Where you've been kind of working really, really long, hard days, weeks, months, years, and then you have to realize, like, this is a point where I have to either get a team or maybe get partners, or I definitely cannot kind of continue the same way.
As an individual, as a businessman, you have to be honest and say, okay, if I keep doing things this way, am I going to sustain it? Am I really going to grow it? Where am I going? Sometimes you'll have to make a call, and this is my advice to any entrepreneur, that there is nothing wrong in failing. Learning from it is important. If you don't learn from a failure, then it is important. It's bad. But it is important to fail sometimes to actually then be able to succeed. So my advice to everybody is that please don't overextend yourself and accept when you are failing. And if you have to cut it out, cut the project out. Don't proceed on that direction. And if you really want to proceed, then find a way which is sustainable. And that sustainable way might be changing the solution, maybe pivoting the project that you were working on to what is needed by the market. Do whatever to make it fit. And if you cannot, then walk away from it. Don't waste too much time on it.
Very true. I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, definitely including me, I think one of the hardest lessons that we've had to learn is when to say no, when to walk away from a project, when to know it's not going to work out, and when to not accept it to begin with.
Right? I mean, sometimes it's like, oh, you see the dollar signs and you're like, oh shit, this is great business. Yeah. But you're going to spend so much time and energy on it, it's not going to be worthwhile. And rejecting those things, that only experience can teach you.
So going forward from this point, what would you say is the biggest challenge that you see for Buy Hive right now in the immediate future or in the short-term future?
So the challenges I see actually are more macro in terms of the situation in Hong Kong, the situation between China and the US, China and Europe, China and rest of Asia, etc., etc. And that is something that is beyond our control. So those are the main challenges I see. More of it is the post-COVID world brings a lot of opportunities for the supply chain. And it's actually an exciting time where a lot of changes are going through. So the other challenge I see is us not being able to pivot quickly. So we'll have to keep our eyes open and be ready to change. The only thing that is going to be consistent for us in the next phase or next 5 years, 10 years is change. The only thing consistent is change. Everything else is going to be probably won't matter.
That's true. It's definitely one of those times which are like, it really forces you to kind of be at the top of your game, or if you're not there, then it really kind of you realize very quickly that, oh, I'm not prepared, this is not the right time, and then that's why a lot of businesses are also kind of closing down and shutting up shop and figuring out what else to do in the future, because it's kind of a survival kind of a time. Thank you so much for taking out the time. Really, really appreciate it. I think that you shared a lot of great things that offer a lot of firsthand advice and insight, and I think that's really super super invaluable to a lot of people. And I really appreciate your experience and the fact that you're so willing to share. Thank you so much.
No problem, no problem. Happy to share.